Hello everyone, welcome back to our speedrun breakdown series. Today we're going to be talking about King's Fall, another of the most requested raids from you guys. This one's going to be, of course, another D1 reprise coming into D2, and I'm excited to talk about it. This raid is a very pleasant one to watch for certain. One of the most exciting raids to watch as a spectator. Maybe not one of the most exciting to run, but certainly one that's exciting and pleasing to watch. So for this run, I actually have my own POV that I'm going to use, which I've stitched together from various of my teammates. And so whenever something interesting is happening on one of my teammates' screens, I will be able to show you it here. So yeah, I'm very excited, and let's get started. So first we have entrance. Now, entrance is a little bit special compared to some of the other entrances in this game. If you think of something like Last Wish entrance, it's really just a kind of movement section where you go forward to the first encounter. This is not like that. Obviously, there are 6 pairs of 2 relics each. And all of them, for us, what we're doing is we have 3 people on each side doing a little cycle, and we're using eager edge swords to hit our teammates across this gap, and using a variety of movement tech, including Icarus dash and holding jump on high mobility and stuff like that, we're able to kind of traverse this terrain on the outside of the relic dunk area rather than breaking the walls and going through the inside, which is a lot slower. So thanks to this, we can cycle through our 3 players on both sides very quickly. And we use a variety of tech to actually pick up these relics and speed up the pickup of these relics. For example, one of them, which I'm about to do, is called a well line pickup, where you well line as a ball is spawning in and you pass by it and you pick it up and you transfer your momentum through. Recently, my team, which has decided to rerun this raid, found a new way to do this well line pickup where you can actually hold interact where a relic is going to spawn in and line from that very spot. So rather than doing a bit of a drive-by like what I just did, and doing a left click or a light attack line, which is like medium speed, you can actually do a heavy attack line from a relic as it's spawning in, and the ball will appear in your hands late, as if it was like a bit of a delay or a bit of some lag going on. So it's a pretty cool strategy that's going to be used coming up into the next record, which should be within the next couple months. So I'm excited to present you guys with that. But that's one change that's going to be happening with entrance. Some of our entrance strategies also use Vergless Curve now in order to boost certain players above a height where they can pick up a relic and do the well line pickup, like I mentioned, the new one, the self line. But besides that, not really much has changed on entrance. It's basically the same thing. We're cycling through players, one by one, 3 per side. And, by doing that, we're able to pick up all the relics on time and hit our players safely to the middle of the map. And boom, just like that, the entrance, the relic section is complete in just under 1.5 minutes. This is likely going to change to, 1 minute, maybe 10 seconds, but not too different regardless. Here, we're just kind of clearing some ads, nothing too special. Just got to make sure they're dead on time. Pretty straightforward. That knight dies, kaboom. And now we move on to ships or tomb ships, cauldrons, whatever you want to call it, various sections here. But this is basically a long transition. One of the only transitions in raid speedrunning where the entire team has to do a transition, at least in Destiny 2, in current Destiny 2, non-Sunset Destiny 2, every single person has to make this transition. So everybody is going through this ship's transition. It looks very, very nice, very, very pleasing to watch 6 warlocks just fly their way through the transition. Pretty entertaining to watch for sure. So here, yeah, we're going to just keep well lining all the way across these very long expanses using heat rises and just carefully preserving our glide here. You'll notice here that we all carefully stay above this line, and the reason for that is there's a checkpoint down here. Let me actually full screen. I totally forgot the full screen. There's a checkpoint down here where if you kind of trigger the checkpoint, it will spawn in the wall. So let me go ahead and keep playing. And so you'll notice, yeah, the wall isn't spawned in. There's no shrieker. And as a result, we are just able to make it all the way to the end of Tomb Ships together and have the elevator just activate just like this, boom. And we are on our way up. So now we're going to make our way to Totems. And Totems is one of the most unique and cool speedrunning encounters in Destiny 2. Very, very, very different from how you would do it in like an LFG, for example. You'll notice that we only have 3 teammates by this door here. And the reason for that is because these 3 teammates are the ones that need the rally, me, Crow, and Warda. And so because of that, we decided to leave 3 of our teammates just outside of the Basilica load zone. And the reason for that is because if you have all 6 of your players hit this load zone boundary staggered, the door will take time to open because it takes time to recognize all 6 players being by the door. So if you just have 3 players go forward first, they call when the door opens, and you can hear this if you watch the POV, that you'll hear door. The other 3 teammates just boom, they zip in to where the door is so that they can come in and help out and rally. So totems. Totems is a very interesting encounter, and the way it kind of works is that obviously in totems you have the 2 totems themselves, right? You have the right totem, you have the left totem, and these totems are surrounded by an aura of poison gas. Think about it like poison gas. So if you spend too much time in this poison gas, you will die no matter what kind of healing you have. It instantly ticks you in 1 tick to death, no matter what, after some time. And the only way to reset your poison stacks is to either spend time outside of the room and your stacks will gradually decrease, or you go inside of a brand. And if you go inside of a brand, it instantly decreases your stacks to 0. And so the way that we figured out how to conceptualize this encounter is that we realized that the vast majority of the ads that spawn in this encounter and actually contribute to this brand progress in order to dunk in the middle plate come from the middle door. And so as a result, that middle door is actually where we camp. So you'll notice I pick up the brand, and instead of making my way into the right room, I kill these ads in the middle and I get on the plate with the brand. And so by doing this, we're kind of cutting out the middleman. Normally, if you do totems in like an LFG or something, you're transferring the brand in and out of this room, right? Someone's going in, they're taking the brand, the person that just got taken from comes out, and there's this long delivery middleman exchange where you have to take these stacks that you've just earned and dunk them into the middle plate. Well, what do we do to combat that in speedrunning? Well, we actually just cut out the middleman entirely, and we have the brands themselves sit on the plates. You'll notice that excluded is also sitting on the edge of the plate, and so am I. And so we're sitting on the edges of the plate and we're dunking stacks as we get them. So the gate to the encounter doesn't become the travel time to dunk your stacks. Now it becomes just killing the enemies. And so thankfully, right, there's a lot of enemies coming from middle, and we also do something else that's pretty special. Because we're in the middle, we have the opportunity to kill these taken wizards, or not these taken wizards, sorry, these hive wizards and taken knights using their respective brands. So if you're not aware, the left brand gets taken stacks and the right brand gets hive enemies to convert into stacks, right? You can't get taken enemies and use them to get stacks for the right brand. And so you can have the right brand kill these wizards using galley, and you can have the left brand kill the taken knights using like finishers. And so we're making Aeon finishers on these knights constantly, and me and my teammate Warda here, we're just cycling as a 2-man over and over here, and we're just killing all of these ads as they come from the doors. So you'll see we make use of shoot to loot to reload our galleys and to make finishers. Boom, just like that. We're on Aeons. I'm currently looking for some ammo. I see some up top there, so I'm probably going to use it later. And as you can see, Galley just absolutely destroys these knights. Normally in an LFG, you'll see that a lot of hive knights make it to left side, and they don't actually give you any stacks. So this cuts out another problem, which allows you to kill all of these ads before they actually start splitting. So all of these knights that would normally be going to the left side, we're just killing all of them with this brand. And so it becomes much less of a problem. And so normally in an LFG, when you do this encounter, it's 3, maybe 4 minutes. Very, very long encounter, when we're considering the grand scheme of things in Destiny. But as a result of this unique strategy, we're actually able to finish this encounter in basically just over 1.5 minutes. So this encounter is actually just 20 seconds away from being done. I'm going to skip past it because I think you guys kind of get the idea. You have these solo left and right players that are resetting the totem's anger and getting rid of their poison stacks by dipping in the brands in the middle. And the brands themselves are just transferring over and over on the middle. So very, very effective way of doing the encounter, very unique way of conceptualizing this encounter. And I'm glad it was able to become a real speedrunning tactic that definitely has seen a lot of use in King's Fall speedrunning. So King's Fall totems, we're not really going to change much from this encounter in the new strategies that we have going into, the next record. So I'm pretty excited for that. So let's move on, and we're going to look at Warpriest next. So Warpriest is pretty cool. It's not a very interesting encounter mechanics wise because you're basically just doing ad clear and then killing a very vanilla boss. What I will say though is part of the setup can become a little bit interesting. So first of all, we're going to kill using just one knight. So the tractor player, in order to decrease the amount of damage loss, we have the tractor player who normally does the least damage. They tractor the boss and then they immediately leave to go look for the first knight. they kill the first knight and they bring it back to damage while everyone else pumps, right? That's obviously the most efficient way to minimize the amount of damage lost by having someone on a rocket, for example, go and get first knight. Like I mentioned, our kill is fast enough that we don't actually need to pursue a second knight. We are going to kill long before the first knight's brand timer is used up. So we get to plates, and of course everybody's kind of in their own corners killing all of their ads. This is an ad sensitive encounter. The faster you kill the ads, the faster the orange bar knight spawn, and of course we get right to damage. Now, damage is a little bit special here. And the reason why is because you'll notice that we use Needle Storm and instantly switch to Stasis, right? And so damage here is fairly straightforward. It's literally just Izzy, GL, rockets, very, very straightforward stuff. In the current record strats that we're going to end up using, it's very, very different. We use Lumina and Cold Comfort, and we stay on stasis the entire time, and we have a lot of the fire team leave as soon as the boss dies. We have 2 people do the transition to Golgoroth by themselves, which is very, very different from what we're going to do in this record, but I'll explain what's going on here nonetheless, because in the newer strats, we actually zero knight. So we kill in 20 seconds flat. Nobody ever goes to look for another knight. Everybody just full commits to damage. Okay, so here it's just going to be Izzy, GL, rocket over and over. This was before Galley nerf, so the chunking is crazy. This boss, falls over very quickly, and you'll notice that my glacier grenade is almost fully charged. And the reason for that is everybody on my team right now, or almost everybody on my team right now, is currently on stasis. And why are they on stasis? Well, they're all charging a glacier grenade, and it's for a very specific purpose on the transition. Okay, and now you might be wondering, how do I get my glacier grenade so fast? Well, I have high discipline, number 1. Number 2, I also have Whisper of Torment, which gives me grenade energy every time I take damage with a small internal cooldown. And then Crow, who was our tractor player, is also killing the knight with a weapon that matches his subclass, and then coming to damage with a grapple. So he kills him using like until its return, like a strand shotgun. He comes to damage and using a grapple, and that grenade usage, he's on Verity's brow, and that gives us Field of Flame. So he's carrying this grenade regen, this team grenade regen effect to damage, so everybody gets their glacier grenades. And you'll see I get my glacier grenade right in the nick of time, right as I'm making my way up this incline. I get my glacier grenade exactly when I need it, and I throw it right at the top of this doorway, right? So you might be wondering, why I just, throw a glacier grenade at the top of the doorway and then leave? Well, the reason for that is because we're doing something called default spawn manipulation. Now, we talked about this during the last Wish speedrun breakdown, but if you weren't here for that, basically what default spawn manipulation is every activity in Destiny 2 is broken down into a series of load zones, so different regions, and every load zone has default spawns. Okay, and default spawns are basically, if you die in an encounter and you don't touch the ground in a specific load zone, the game needs to know where to spawn you because you didn't set your res anywhere, right? Your ghost isn't like anywhere that's like normal. So the game will spawn you in a default location. Now, if this default location is considered dangerous or obstructed, some load zones have a fallback spawn. So they'll put you somewhere alternative in order to make up for the fact that your default spawn is obstructed. So that's what's going on here. We are manipulating the default spawn and forcing the game to give us the fallback spawn. So in this case, we're blocking the default spawn, which happens to be a little rectangle here at the start of the Golgoroth maze load. And so you'll see that when these 4 grenades are thrown, we're going to look at the Hashiro POV. He is dead, and you see this big box of crystals blocking off this entire spawn. He is dead, and when he respawns, he's at the end of the maze. So the fallback spawn of the Golgoroth maze load just happens to be at the very end of the maze, allowing you to skip having to go all the way around the maze, or possibly even, open the door in the middle or something like that. There used to be a strategy when servers were slower where you could just well line straight through the middle of the maze. That's kind of been, come and gone. That's been kind of done with now, and everybody just does this now. It's called DSM, and that's kind of the technique used here. So I mentioned that this is going to be done differently in the future, and the reason for that is because we have 3 players rejoin on Hunter and 1 player rejoin on Titan in current strategies. So in this strategy, we have 5 warlocks still in the fire team and 1 person rejoins on Titan, right? In the old strategy, we have in the new strategy, we have 3 players rejoin on Hunter and 1 player rejoin on Titan. So 4 people need to leave rejoin. So the DSM is done by 2 people using Apotheosis Veil to recharge a bunch of glacier grenades. So what do we have here? Well, they're waiting for the Golgoroth door to open. I'm rejoining their fire team right now, and basically I'm putting it on a dim loadout. Basically what they're waiting for right here is they're waiting for my roster to merge with theirs. And the reason for this is they're about to place a permaflag. So we talked about permaflags before in other raids, for example, Vault of Glass, Garden of Salvation. What a permaflag is if you place a flag at a very specific time in certain encounters, as the encounter is starting, the encounter will kind of forget to remove the flag from play. It won't disappear. And then you can rally at any time that you want during the encounter to that flag. Now, this is not saying you can rally multiple times, but you can rally once and you can rally whenever you want. Now, the side effect of this, the benefit of this, is that if somebody is joining your fire team and they were in the fire team, so they were in the roster when that perma was placed, when they load in, even though the encounter has started, they will be able to rally to the flag. So you'll see here, I wait until my roster appears and merges with theirs, right? The second it merges with theirs, I call start, and then they're able to start the encounter and place that flag. And since technically the game thinks I'm part of the fire team, and when a flag is placed and you're part of a fire team, well, you can rally to that flag. So that perma flag gets kind of plonked down, and everybody starts getting ready to move out and proceed with Golgoroth. Now, Golgoroth is an encounter where basically it's like Warpriest. You do some ad clear. The ad clear is time sensitive, so it does matter how quickly you kill the ads, and then you get to do boss damage, right? It's exactly the same formula as Warpriest, besides the fact that there's no plate mechanics and there's gaze mechanics instead. Now, the important thing here is that Golgoroth ad clear is actually very, very, very forgiving. So we actually have only one player up top here killing the bulk of the ads on Sunbracers, and using Sunbracers, he's going to do his best to farm up his entire well, and he's going to use his well for a very specific reason. So we're going to go back to my POV here. You'll see, like I said, I rally to the flag. I'm on Titan now. I'm on Tractor, T-Crash, Armamentarium, Touch of Thunder, Pulse Nades, and I'm going to be participating in a little bit of damage. But the main thing that I'm going to be doing right now is I'm actually going to be taking Golgoroth's gaze from behind him, right? So let's take a look at this. I'm going to go ahead and Tractor him nice and early so he's debuffed for the start of damage. I'm going to go hide behind him. My teammates are going to force him to look at them. And that way, when his back opens, I can instantly take gaze and my teammates are already in the bubble ready to do damage. So all I'm doing here is I'm tractoring. Remember how I said one player is up top, that being Hashira, farming a well up using Sunbracers? Well, this is what it's for. This is just so I can tank all of these missiles, continue to tractor the boss freely. And now I can just shoot down their second bubble for them with no interference, with this Well of Radiance to protect me. And so I've shot down that bubble. My teammates are proceeding to second bubble, and I'm going to go ahead and use my Armamentarium and Pulse Nades in order to do a little bit of damage. I'm going to T-Crash the boss, tractor him again, throw some Pulse Nades, and now I'm going to switch to Strand. And I'm going to Horseman the boss's chest, and boom, Golgoroth is dead in just a clean 2 bubbles. Okay? In the future, there's going to be Hunters, so there's going to be Nighthawks. The kill's going to be even faster here. And you'll notice that I switched to Strand so I get my grapple, right? So if you weren't aware, 2 of the Warlocks in the fire team right now are actually on Verity's Brow. And the reason for that is not because Verity's Brow is an insanely OP damage exotic or anything like that, but this boss has a fair amount of total health. A lot of the Kingsfall bosses are kind of bullet sponges. So augmenting your damage by adding some grenades into the mix so that you can save a bit of heavy ammo is nice. And of course, these Warlocks have to be on Solar Warlock because they're doing a transition. So they need their wells for transition. That's part of the reason why Hashira's role farmed up an entire well from scratch so that he could come back and rally and get another well so he could well skate on transition. So that's an important note to know. As for everything else, these Warlocks are on Verity's Brow, like I said, and because they're on Verity's Brow, when I approach them on Strand and I switch subclasses, I get a burst of grenade energy from Field of Flame, and I have a grapple for the transition. Now, the transition, the reason why I have a grapple is because most of this section I can do about as fast as the Warlocks, right? I'm on Titan, I have some sword ammo for sword skating, kind of making my way around town here. But the main section of the transition, which is this long dick wall, not very easy to do on Titan quickly, right? Even if you have Lion Rampant, you're not going to be as fast as a Hunter or Warlock. So what do? That's right. I wait for my friend Hashira, and I grapple to him as he well lines. And now I'm able to make it all the way across the transition, and we're going to make it to the Daughter's encounter. Now, something small that we've changed for this kind of jump up section is that I think everybody's going to kind of switch to Strands, and we're going to use a navigator point or maybe multiple navigator points up top here to make this section a little bit faster, because navigators are a really, really fast way to get up this whole section very easily. But, you know, it's not too much time save, right? Everyone's kind of here around the same time if everyone has their own kind of route. So, door opens. It's time for Daughters. Now, aside from Totems, I think Daughters is one of the most unique raid encounters in terms of speedrunning because of the way we abuse mechanics and movement in this encounter to kind of bend it to our will and go really as quickly as possible. So I really enjoy explaining this encounter, so let's kind of see how it works. So the first peculiar thing that you'll notice is that for whatever reason, 4 people at this encounter, excluded Warda, Aegis, Vortex, VR, all 4 of them die instantly before the encounter even starts. Okay, they all one-shot themselves with the underlay mountaintop. Why is this? Well, the way this encounter works, well, we can see everything here in one picture. It's kind of nice for us. The way this encounter works is that when you start the encounter, it doesn't actually tear anyone, right? As long as you don't get on the plate with the knight, no one gets torn. And so, only when Crow gets on that plate with the knight does someone become torn. And the way tearing works is that the game will always prefer to tear players that are not the person that got on the plate with the first knight. So, because everybody else is dead and only Hashira, whose POV we are currently watching, as well as Crow are alive, and Crow is about to get on the plate with the knight, it's guaranteed that Hashira gets torn. So Crow gets on the plate, and you'll see Hashira instantly gets torn when he flies into the sky here. So he does a well bounce with Heat Rises, and he does a Phoenix Dive to get some restoration ahead of time so the Daughters don't one-shot him because he's taking a lot of physics damage. He's just going to float in the sky. And you're going to notice here in a second that Excluded revives himself. You see Excluded right there. He's like a little ant. He revives himself, and Crow instantly makes his way to the second plate, which is bottom right. So the sequence here is bottom left to bottom right. Crow calls out bottom right. He makes his way there, and Excluded completes the sequence by going to the base plate, the original plate that Crow was on with the knight. That's bottom left. And by doing so, they form the bridge completely. And Hashira, who is torn, aka the correct player, simply just has to float down to this corner and pick up the Brand Claimer piece. How smart is that, right? What a cool strategy. So this is a really, really cool strategy. After this, right, another series of well bounces is done. And how is this done? So remember what I said. The game has a specific way of tearing people, has preferences when it's tearing people, right? And another rule with the game is that it never tears the same person twice if it can afford to, right? And because there's 3 people alive in this encounter right now, Hashira being one of them, he's not going to get torn. So the other 2 players, Excluded and Crow, one of them is guaranteed to get torn. So as soon as Hashira picks this up, you're going to watch, he's going to fall down. Both Excluded and Crow do well bounces to go up into the sky. You can see them going up right now, and they are floating in the sky right now above everyone else. And one of them just got torn. You can see Excluded and Crow in the ceiling right there. And as soon as one of them gets torn, everybody else respawns because there's no danger of being torn inappropriately at this point in the encounter. So everybody else respawns, and you'll see that the second round of Daughters is already complete, right? Now, you might be thinking one of the disadvantages here is that everybody in the fire team, or at least half the people on the fire team, have to be on swords for this. And this does, you're right, it does jeopardize the Daughters kills a little bit, but you'll see, thanks to the power of Galley and some Verity's Brow usage and some smart and well-paced damage, you'll see that the Daughters will fall over very quickly. Notice I also said Daughters, right? Not just one daughter, Daughters, right? This encounter is very fast in speedrunning for another reason, and that is because of desync, and we'll explain that in just one second. So first of all, let's just kind of set the record straight here, right? Let's rewind a little bit, right? Right now in this raid, we have 5 Warlocks and 1 Titan, right? Well, first of all, why not have 6 Titans, right? I mean, a Warlock, or sorry, not 6 Titans. Why not have 6 Warlocks, right? A Warlock could do everything that I did during Golgoroth, besides the T-Crash, but you know, we could just be on well and do Verities or whatever, right? You know, why do we have a Titan? Why do we have a Titan? Why is a Titan on Lion Rampants, High Lift, and a sword, and Hammer of Soul going to pick up the last Brand Claimer piece using their sword on the final round of the first phase of Daughters? What are they doing? Well, we're going to take a look here and see. First, I sprint and I sprint and I cast my barricade and cancel my barricade animation off of a ledge using the Hammer of Soul super. Then I start throwing hammers. Why do I start throwing hammers? Well, I slam on one daughter, but you're going to notice something special. I slam on one daughter, and yet it still says E Steel Brand. Why is that? Well, we'll see in just a second. I slam on the second daughter as well, And notice I instantly die, and both daughters have their shields removed. Both daughters have their auras removed. So what is going on here? This is one of the coolest strategies that's ever been brought into a D2 raid speedrun, and it is called Titan desyncing, okay? The way that it works is, for whatever reason, when you sprint off a ledge and you cast your barricade and you cancel your barricade with a super animation, specifically Hammer of Soul, after a certain number of seconds, you will become desynced with the game instance. So what does that mean? If you're not familiar with what desync is, it's basically you're going to be out of sync with the game instance. So whatever is happening, whatever the game thinks you're doing, is going to be different from what you're seeing on your screen. So on my teammates' screens, in fact, why don't we go to my teammates' POVs so you can see exactly what I look like while I'm desynced. So we're going to go to Hashiro's POV, right? And you'll see that right now I'm top left and I'm making my way up to the brand claimer piece. And let's see if he actually looks around so that he can see me, right? Where am I? Let's actually turn this quality up a little bit so we can see what's going on. Do we see me anywhere? Okay, I don't think we see me anywhere. But basically what it looks like to me, what I look like to my teammates right now, is I look like I'm sprinting into a wall, right? You've ever had somebody disconnect in PvP or disconnect in a raid or something like that, and you see their body just continuously walk into a wall or whatever direction they were going into? The game just continues to repeat whatever movement they were doing. That's what desyncing looks like, okay? So on the game side of things, I might be standing still, I might not be doing anything, I might be continuously walking into a wall, falling off the map. The game does not know what I'm doing while I'm desynced, right? So during this period of time, I can actually slam on a daughter, and the game won't take away my brand claimer because it doesn't know that I'm actually slamming on the daughter yet, right? On my game side, my game knows that I'm doing that, but the server doesn't know that I'm doing that. And so the funny thing about Hammer of Soul desyncing is that when your super ends, that's when you resync, right? So basically, if you time it perfectly and you slam on the second daughter just as your super ends, right after your super ends, right, you'll resync and the game will think that you're in two positions at once and slam on both daughters at the same time. So the actions that you did while you were desynced, aka slamming on the first daughter, as well as the actions that you did when you resynced, both of them will happen at the same time. And as you know, just like in Totems, notice how during Totems I was keeping my distance from excluded. If you ever have if you ever have both auras at the same time in this raid, you die instantly. So during Totems, for example, if me and excluded were to cross our Venn diagrams together and, you know, both get both buffs, we both die instantly. And so as the Titan here, because I'm stealing both of the, you know, the brands, the Weaver and the Unraveler brands, if I steal both of them, I die instantly, right? And so boom, as a result, I die instantly, but both their shields are taken off. And so now my team is 5-manning the damage phases of both daughters at the same time. They're going to kill the daughter that isn't singing, and then they're going to kill the daughter that is singing back to back, right? They just jump across, they instantly start shooting her, and they bake her, right? And so she's dead. And look at this encounter timer right now. I want to point out something. This is a very fast encounter, right? Daughters is done in a mere 1 minute and around 15 seconds, right? The second daughter is dead at 1:15, right? So that is absolutely crazy. Titan desyncing is a really cool strat. That's the reason why you bring a Titan to King's Fall, the second half at least. So very, very cool. I hope you guys kind of understand like the well balancing and the spawn manipulation and stuff like that. And of course, ammo was limited here. So all the sword warlocks, one of them's on galley, one of them's on tractor, one of them's on a regular rocket, and they're doing Verity's damage to kind of pad their numbers because they have basically 3 rockets going into damage, right? So that's a little bit different as well. But that's basically it for daughters, and now it's time for Oryx. Now you might be wondering, why am I just sitting here waiting? And why is excluded just sitting there waiting? Oryx is a perma-able encounter. So just like Golgoroth, right? If it's a 2-man perma, because the flag is so far away from where you are to start the encounter, so you have to collaboratively hit this with another teammate. So the way you do this is excluded sits right on the border of where the encounter start kind of region is, and there's another person who's sitting by the flag, and when this person is ready, they call good, and then the flag person says go, and they instantly start placing the flag, and this person just moves forward into the orb, and both those things happening at the same time will result in the flag being permanently placed for the rest of the encounter. So Oryx is a little bit simpler compared to daughters. At the start, you kill these thralls to speed up the night spawns. So we just kind of boop, boop, you know, we just snipe a couple of these little thralls. And of course, the night spawn in, we just kill them with 4th horseman, nice and fast. And then I make my way over to the flag so I can get a rally off. right? So I switched to my encounter loadout, which is seems like it's Riptide Shotgun Tractor, so I can help with killing some of these ogres. And so Oryx is pretty simple, right? All you need to know is that there is a floater system, and the floater system helps us kind of organize and keep things kind of simple and make sure that there's no time lost by certain people not being on certain plates when they're supposed to be. So the way the floater system works is there's a first floater and a second floater and 4 plate people, right? It's kind of like Garden, right? Where you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have 2 floaters, right? During second encounter. So just like that, if one person gets torn, right? The floater's job is to replace them as quickly as possible. The first floater is on a sword, so not my role, the other role. The first floater is on a sword, and the second floater is not on a sword. I'm on tractor, and I follow the first floater, and I replace them so that they can go back to middle and go back to being the first floater, so that if someone else gets torn, they can replace them as quickly as possible. So you'll notice that right here, right? Boom. Right away, we call bottom right torn. We call bottom right torn. Excluded is the first floater. He's on a sword, and I tell him he can leave, and I will take over for him. So he goes back to mid, and I get on bottom right. And you'll notice here, the second I get torn, I check if my plate's green. It's not green. I go to mid. And this is what this is what you would do if you were a plate person. You would just jump to mid and you would skip over all of this area, and using high mobility and, burst glide, or in my case, high lift and line rampant, I'm able to jump very easily and skip over a lot of these platforms and make it to the final one. Now, just like how I use the sword to grab the third brand claimer, the actual claimer itself, toward the end of Daughters, Excluded is going to do the same thing on Warlock here, okay? So if you weren't aware, I didn't really explain this very well during Daughters, but the first 2 rounds of Daughters, the person who is torn has to be the one that picks up the brand claimer piece, okay? The third round, though, the actual item itself, the interactable that you can pick up, anybody can pick that up. Anybody can pick that up as long as you're up there with the brand claimer itself. So Excluded is going to do that this time around. I'm not going to do it because I'm not on a sword. We decided that the Titan would be the better tractor option than a Warlock because I have T-Crash. And so now Excluded has picked up the brand claimer. He is about to slam on the knight, and we are about to get into our bombs. Now, you're going to notice here another thing, that we get into our bombs very, very early compared to when an LFG team might. And that's because we did some testing and we discovered that you can actually get into your bomb the second Oryx starts lifting his hand, rather than the Oryx calls upon the darkness line. So Oryx starts lifting his hand, we get into our bombs right away, and I just tractor him a little bit early. I tractor his knuckle so that the initial damage right at the start when the bombs go off is going to be debuffed. And now I T-Crash Oryx right in the knuckle, and I start doing double pellet and tractor damage. So 1, 2, 3 swapping. These days I quick swap this because quick swapping was kind of rediscovered after this point when this raid was run. So I quick swap these nowadays, but not too much of a change. And the only thing that Oryx is really changing in the future is the fact that yes, we have 3 hunters on Daughters, so the damage is a little bit better, and on Oryx we also have 3 hunters, so the damage is even better there. And so, yeah, the only real future strategy is that we're going to try to do the Daughters bouncing strategy on Oryx. The reason why this wasn't done in this team was because it was perceived as being a little bit too complex, a little bit too difficult, because Oryx, there's more ad clear that's sensitive at the beginning of the encounter. So if you have only 2 people alive, it's a little bit more difficult to do that. And it's a darkness zone as soon as you start the encounter. And so it's difficult to kind of get that revive timing off. And also you have to like blow up bombs and stuff like that. So it's a less independent encounter than Daughters is. But we're experimenting with a way to figure out how to get those bounces to also work on Oryx to save even more time. And so that's pretty much it. Sorry, my voice was kind of hoarse this video. But King's Fall is a pretty cool raid, right? Pretty interesting raid. I'm streaming King's Fall runs if you guys are interested in watching those live, because we are running it back for a better time with better strategies. We're probably going to be going for like a mid to high 11 if you're curious with that, so probably saving like a minute and a half off of this time. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions about King's Fall at all, like any of the speedrun strategies, feel free to leave them in the comments. And let me just go over my notes here. I'm pretty sure I covered everything. Yeah, final stand is just 3 needle storms. I mean, in the new record, I suppose it'll be like 3 Nighthawks or something. But besides that, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. And next up after this, we'll be talking about Ron, Root of Nightmares, which recently had its record beat by 13 seconds. So I'm excited to talk about that one. Very cool speedrunning raid, one of the best speedrunning raids for sure. And yeah, I'll see you guys there.